companies, a scrap metal company, a solar company, now I've got a solar development company. You'll see I'm sort of half office, half work. I wanted to give a talk about an idea that I've been working on. There's a gentleman in the back corner there, Adrian Turner, a friend of mine. We've worked together 21 years ago in solar research at a company called Pacific Solar in Sydney, which was set up between Union, New South Wales and Pacific Power, which was formerly the Electricity Commission, to invent a new type of solar panel. And we both went different directions and our careers have brought us back together. We've been working on a solar farm expansion project for some of my solar farms, and that led us into discussions of storage and how to best approach storage, whether we use batteries or what have you. And one of my passions was, can we look at PumpHydro as a storage? The reason I like PumpHydro is I'm a tradesman, I'm an electrical fitter. I didn't go to uni, I went to Bayswater and Liddell Power Station, so I did my apprenticeship with the coal. I did my 4th year apprenticeship at Kangaroo Valley, Bendila, and a bit of time down at Hume. So I've actually been lucky to be inside PumpHydro power stations in Kangaroo Valley and climb through them from top to bottom. Slid down Penstock in Hume, which was not something that everyone gets to do. But if you get a chance, I thoroughly recommend it. They're fantastic things to climb around. It's equally interesting as a coal power station is to climb around. Solar farms are actually So my wife and I own the solar farm at Singleton. It's one of the biggest solar farms in the Southern Hemisphere until 2002. I think it was the biggest in Australia until 2005. It was built by the New South Wales government, and it was abandoned by the New South Wales government after a period of useful application. So we bought it in 2013 and spent a bit of time fixing up bits and pieces, getting it running, and we have a view to expanding it. Working with Adrian, we're planning a 2 megawatt expansion which we want to get cracking very quickly. So PumpHydro wouldn't go at Singleton, but we've looked at a lot of sites, like Lakers has done, looked at sites on mountaintops. We looked at sites where solar farms could go, and then we ran into the issue that we just heard about certificate prices in the future and the performance of the wholesale electricity market. And if you're going to build a solar farm, you're going to be selling your electricity into a very busy part of the day. And when the sun's up, everyone's generating. Midday prices are inverse to the sun plot. So we were forecasting a collapse in revenue for our solar farm investment. So we need storage. And then we thought about, well, where can we put storage? Batteries are certainly quite attractive. We've seen information that batteries are forecast to come down to under $250 per kilowatt hour. That's going to be tough to beat for any type of storage project. So we started working on what we thought was a more controlled way of doing PumpHydro, and that's what we're calling it closed loop. We're proposing to use in various configurations. The base idea is tanks at the top, tanks at the bottom, your penstock, your pumps, your generators, everything. And instead of a transmission style or transmission sized solution, we're talking about distribution. I don't know if you understand the difference between transmission and distribution. Distribution is kind of 11,000 volt, 33,000 volt, maybe 66 out of squeeze. Transmission is your 1 through 2, 330 kV. It's just different scale factors. So we're focusing in the 1 to 4 megawatt electrical range. The idea being that we believe, and not a challenge to Mr. Lakers, but we believe we can probably build small ones faster and more of them, utilising small spaces within the built environment. One of the examples included here is an old coal mine that we could retask. I also must declare that I didn't make this presentation. I've been talking on the phone with Adrian. Adrian's done the legwork on this. It's basically his presentation that I'm delivering. Wind PV solar batteries, you can see quite simply, it's what we've seen, Adrian and I, quite luckily, through the 20 years in solar, ever falling costs. Every year, solar's cheaper. Now we're going to see batteries are cheaper. Growing market share, innovative mass manufacture. The key is mass manufacture in solar. That was always the key, and I think we recognise early, but what were we going to mass manufacture? That was the original project spec. Standard designs, incremental widespread deployment, competition. Competition is what feeds innovation, and you can try and protect your IP, but it's always going to run out at some stage, and there's always going to be some competition, so embrace it. Nuclear, please don't anybody say thorium. It annoys me to death. One of my really good mates has a thorium reaction in Norway in a neutron reactor, and we love drinking a glass of red wine and bashing stories about thorium's going to save the world. Increasing cost. It's almost the inverse. It's bizarre, but it's not bizarre. Shrinking market share, bespoke engineering, non-standard component, large projects, and we're now seeing large projects 90% built, unlikely to be turned on. Limited new deployment, often difficult environmental approval, as you could expect. This one is becoming increasingly important. Social license. Communities say no. They have the right to say no. They express their right to say no in so many more different ways than we used to. Social media is obviously leading that. It's not a new dream. I like the quote. Ideally, smaller capacity, distributed scale, modular pump storage hydro, under 25 megawatts. Components would utilise a common modular design, enabling economies of scale during the design and fabrication stage. And that's the key to what we're talking about. Development of modular pumped hydro storage hydropower is a major focus for the US Department of Energy, and it's a quote down the bottom, 2015, quite recent. The advantages are many and obvious. Economies of scale, wider range of acceptable sites. And that's what we mean. If we look at what Mr. Blakers is proposing, it's found thousands or tens of thousands of sites. Turkey-Nest dams, the tops of mountains. Generally, we're going to see social licence refused. People aren't going to want the visual amenity. Now, again, that's not new, because you go and try and build a wind farm. How noisy are your opponents? So, we propose that you could consider smaller, large diameter tanks, coloured, blended into the environment, snuck into the environment, inside the tree line. You could periodically expand your construction by additional tanks over time. Simplified project development, less environmental hurdles. One of the key factors there is if you want to build a dam, you've got an open dam on the top, you've got your environmental evaporation, transpiration losses, you've got birds wanting to integrate with that water supply, the impact on where the water comes from, where the water goes, in the case of an open earthen dam down the bottom. Tank to tank, roof on the top, it's closed. It's removed from the environment. So it's disconnected. So when you're talking about potential environmental effects, you can rule a lot of them out because it's actually a closed system. And again, it's not new, because that's how we get our drinking water. Water is harvested, it's cleaned, purified, pumped, sent up into a tank and stored, distributed into houses. So we just, variation on the theme. Smaller projects are easier to finance, another key one. You can chip away at a series of 1 to 4 megawatt projects. One of the scenarios I was theorising was Department of Transport, or Transport for New South Wales. You've got an electrical rail corridor from Newcastle all the way to Coimbra, right down the eastern face of the eastern escarpment. There are lots of 200 metre elevation differentials, and there's a 33 kV power line runs along that train. They have a morning peak, they have an evening peak, which is not matched by solar. So again, you can store your solar during the day, you can store your wind during the night, which New South Wales is windier during the night than during the day. Your PumpHydro can run your electrical network in those peak periods, and you recharge in your off-peak periods. Small scale history. 1920s is there, and then nothing, and then a little bit, and then bang. These are all large scale. So we've been busy. You can't even see the green. That's the 1 to 10 megawatt scale. I don't think it made it on the chart. So we've only really focused on big, and certainly in Australia, we say we've only got 3. Kangaroo Valley being the smaller one, it's around 240 megawatts. So big but small. Now we get into the why not type of thinking. There's some people in Germany, Galdorf project. Let's put PumpHydro in a wind tower. Who would have thought of that? Sounds stupid on paper, but hey, that's a photograph of what they're doing. So they're going to incorporate storage with the wind towers at the wind towers. And that's the kind of thinking that we see coming to us. It doesn't matter anymore. If you can think of an idea, someone will think of how to do it. I mean, yes, it does relate to cost. So the upper reservoirs are at the base of the turbines, utilising a height differential, and basically they're trying to get out of that overproduction slump when prices start to collapse. And prices start to collapse to everybody at the same time in the like of wind, because everyone's got the same wind, everyone's got the same sun. They had a grant. I imagine they've had quite a lot of assistance. I don't imagine it's a commercially viable in its own right project, but nothing ever is when it's the first of its kind. Some more graphs. You might not be able to read the words, but these are upper reservoir, lower reservoir. They really jump out of the graph as to where the cost is embedded, because that's large reservoirs. We're talking about tanks, so much smaller scale and much less material involved in the construction of the tank. Tank capex. So Adrian should really explain these, because I only saw these slides today, but everyone will be able to get them. Please come and talk to us after. Earthen lining down the bottom. Welded tanks, concreted tanks, and the one that we're focusing on is this yellow little triangle, which is that one there, and that's where we want to see the price come down. This is what's called bolted panel tank, so it's like a kit. It comes pre-manufactured, it's loaded on a truck, deliver it to site, and a bunch of blokes then bolt it together like a Meccano set. So every young engineer's dream, really. And current off-the-shelf, fully installed price for an Australian-made tank is about $180 per kilowatt hour, based on 10 megalitres at 200 metres head. And an interesting point that we're talking Australian innovation or Australian products, Australian steel, Australian manufacture. Australian concrete is fast becoming imported concrete. Cement is increasingly being imported from Asia, so that our concrete is only going to be Australian rock and sand. So we can see there's an opportunity to take an off-the-shelf product that we have in existence now, that they only make 1 or 2 a year. It's very custom, it's quite expensive. But if we turn that into 1 or 2 a month or 1 or 2 a week, again, we go back to the Chinese philosophy of let's just build more of it faster and drive the economy of scale, which consequently brings the prices down. So we can forecast some cost now, but without superimposing economy of scale on the top. It's very hard to say that we can't find a way to make it cheaper. An example, 4 10 megalitre tanks in the top, 5.5 hours of storage, 200 metres penstock, 4 megawatt pump and turbine down the bottom, either to an existing reservoir or tanks. Now again, you could have put in 1 10 megalitre tank at the top and your penstock turbine equipment. You can increase your run time by adding more tanks. You don't need more turbines or more penstocks or more electrical. You really are going to increase the size of your battery by simply just putting in more tanks. You can create a disparity between your tanks as well. You can have more storage at the top. One of the revenue sources in the market is that step-in generation. You can actually accumulate your water, you can lose it. But the value at $15,000 a megawatt hour, you can afford to lose 10 megalitres if you can generate into that space. So you've got to play out some scenarios. We even looked at another scenario where you could co-locate water purification, because membrane technology needs a lot of pressure. There's 200 metres head of pressure there. So you do desalination systems that use a lot of electricity to pump the water to create the pressure. You can pinch the pressure from your tanks. So there's no sort of limit to the thinking of where we can take this. bolted steel tanks, a couple of pictures, very squat, very large diameter, or slightly taller. And there's actually an innumerable range. We've talked to quite a few different tank manufacturers. Pretty much whatever you want, up to about 50 metres diameter. It gets a bit ridiculous beyond 50 metres, but you can imagine a 50 metre diameter tank is substantial anyway. And so their kit. Well, I think one of the quotes I got was a 5 megalitre panel tank takes 6 men 2 weeks to erect from delivery. Faster than concrete, you can repair it. 30-year design life, expected to last 40 years, and there's a whole range of progressively developing coatings that they can now apply to the tanks to increase the life of them, so that you expand upon the life of your investment. So you can put in a galvanised panel tank and then coat it. So you've got a galvanised protection underneath, polymer coating on the outside and the inside of the tank. Now, one example of a tank innovation was a funny idea. Adrian and I spent a while trying to work out how can you make a better tank or a faster tank. And a lot of Google searching, and we were talking about an example of having the tank walls delivered wound up like a top spring, and then unwinding them at site and welding them together or bolting them together. There is a company that we found that's been doing it. We believe it's patented, not dissimilar to wind turbine towers, that they were deciding that they could try and manufacture them at site using spiral wound welding systems. I didn't think that was a great idea because I've helped erect wind towers and steel's pretty thick, so I'd love to see the equipment that rolls it. But for us, we don't need super thick steel. The idea is that the tank walls do get thinner as they go up in height, but you can even line the tanks, which you don't then need to be as finicky on your material choice. But that might be a way to really massively drive the cost down. So you've got a robot and a crane erecting the tank rather than 5 men putting in 1 million bolts over 2 weeks. Again, there's a space, it's ripe for innovation, and any ideas are welcome. Tank capex to drop, we think it could go to $60 a kilowatt hour, which is 120 for top and bottom tanks. Incremental capex per kilowatt hour beats batteries for an asset which lasts 4 times longer. So batteries, we're expecting 10 years, some people say maybe 7. But tank, you could have a composite penstock, high quality turbine. How long is that going to last? The experience shows that most PumpHydros are in the 40, 50, 60 year range and beyond. So it is possible to imagine a future where tank costs for a smaller scale modular PumpHydro are much more competitive compared to a large scale one, because it requires varying degrees of civil. And it's quite funny listening to some of these presentations where you're talking about hitting the $2,000 a kilowatt hour or 2 million a meg range. We were beating ourselves going, we've got to get it to 1,000. We've got to get under 1,000. So we thought we got close. I think we can actually go under with some relatively conservative estimates into the future. But I wanted to share it, so sort of the first time it's been shared. Love to hear any questions as well, and we're not far off knocking off and I'm going to be outside, so great place to chat. And this was the former coal mine site, which became a coal coking works, just down the railway line here at Coal Cliff, 200 metre cliff. Laser pointing on here. Yep, there we go. So that there is the actual coke battery that roasted all the coal. The mine was just over in this section here. There's a tank, hard to see. There's a tank snuck in somewhere just about there, and there, from memory, that's the escarpment edge right along there. Between there and there is 200 metres. That there to the ocean is another 100 metres. There's a lot of flat area, which was the old coal piles. There's some more coal piles out of view over here. And there's a water line easement. There's an actually existing pipeline down They had a header tank, and just out of view is a 5 megalitre open air reservoir where they harvested fresh water to actually run the coke works. It's abandoned. They're looking for something else to do with it. Just like that, off the cuff, driving past on a train one day and thought, shit, there's a good site. There's 200 metres, there's an electric railway line right there. It's then a stone's throw from Sydney. And it's got everything pretty much ready to go. You can superimpose a new development over the top of an existing development and avoid a lot of those long-term studies that you need to do. So that was one of the sites that we thought might be useful. Another one we did a play with was Canberra and Ainsley. 100 and gone like that. Mount Ainsley, about 180 metres head, substation at the bottom, there's an existing tank, put a tank at the top, and you can play with those things. Again, it was a distribution solution, piggybacking off existing substations and transformer connections, along with solar. There's a bit more of it where the solar could be located within X kilometres along that distribution line, and you could do a deal with the company that owns the distribution line. There's a range of solutions. I'll probably leave it there. Any questions?
Roger,
Yeah, I was going to say we spoke on the phone, but
fascinating stuff, love it. What pipe diameter would you use, and what kind of friction losses would you expect in your efficiency?
so found a company in South Australia that makes 2 custom order pipes, composite, anything up to about 3.3 MPa, and anything up to, I think they can do, is it 3 metres, Adrian? I think they said. No, but the friction losses were really small because it's composite fiberglass laid up with silica sands and a whole range of things. The friction losses were really, really small. 100-year design life. It's a pretty amazing type. So there's a company in South Australia that they're all able, they can make any size custom, and they're 12 metre lengths standard. So 12 metre length, anything from I think 500, and they call it mandrel manufacture. So they just set the mandrel to the diameter that you want, and then build the layers of the pipe up, and then slide the pipe off and make the next one.
Those friction losses because they're relatively small, right?
No, 600 to a metre.
Okay.
And we, in the Coalcliff site, we considered a dual pin stock. The reason being that if you've got a pump turbine system and you want to play arbitrage in the market, you don't want to be pumping into a single pen stock and then see a price spike in your 5-minute market. You have to wait for the pump to stop, the inertia, turn it all around and generate. We thought for the additional cost of the pen stock, you know, just over half the diameter, 2 pipes. One is dedicated for pumping, and pumping is usually only going to be half or less speed of generation. So you can instantly generate in the steady pen stock, and you pump into your second pen stock, then shut that down, let it turn around and generate. You're all going to sign a disclaimer if you leave the room now, because that's OP.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right.
And the final